And why are these three pillars very important? Because at the end of the day, everything is about data. Everything is about data. If you don't have the data, you can't do anything.
Legacy data is life.
Data is life, exactly. So for us, at the heart of what we work, what we do is data. We first need to be able to go into the context and determine what are the problems, what are the issues that need solving. And the problems in Borno State are very different from the problems in Akwa Ibom, which are very different from the problems in Kigali. So even within cities, when you go to different households and different communities, you see different challenges. So it's extremely important that one, first of all, understands what is the context, how do the people there exist, what are the pain points that they have, and what sort of things have been done in the past, who else is acting in that environment, where are the gaps. So once we're able to dimension that, then the next thing is to be able to design the solution.
Bill Clinton, an attorney and former president of the United States of America, once said that the price of doing the same old thing is far higher than the price of change. That's a very interesting quote if you ask me. But now let's see our second quote to know exactly where today's discussion is headed. And this one is from Narendra Modi, current Prime Minister of India. He once stated, and I quote, "The more we give importance to skill development, the more competent will be our youth." Oh, wow. That's a very interesting one if you ask me. But like I said, let's see how this relates to what we will be discussing tonight. Warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Competence television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, according to UNICEF, the youth today live in a world of challenges and opportunities, including new technologies, changing labor markets, migration, conflict, and environmental and political changes. To succeed within this current and future environment, young people need access to quality education and learning that develops skills through Skills Outside School Foundation, knowledge, attitudes, and values that enables them to become successful lifelong learners who can learn, relearn, and unlearn. Or maybe learn, unlearn, and relearn. And then also find and retain productive work, make wise decisions, and positively engage in their communities. Leaders are in the change business, and unfortunately, in too many situations, change doesn't go so well. There is more to successful change than simply managing it. Successful change requires something more. Now, in this masterclass, you will learn the keys to change process, how we all make the decision and take giant steps to change, and how you can use those keys to help people make the choice to change more predictably and successfully. With this skill set, you will become more effective and a confident leader and be in demand for future leadership roles. So, you are obviously on your way to getting the requisite mindset, tools, and competences to become a social entrepreneur and make an impact for the greater good. Want to know how? Join us again after this time out. Glad to have you back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Competence television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we have our guest, two guests actually. We'll start with the female. She's Halima Ibrahim, a finance, social sector, and legal professional with over 13 years experience. She's also the SA to the Chief Investment Officer of the African Finance Corporation, that's AFC, She's also the chair and founder of the leading Pan-African education, employability, and entrepreneurship organization, Skills Outside School Foundation, leveraging on data, advocacy, and interventions with over 150 partners and over 50,000 beneficiaries across Nigeria, West Africa, Latin America, and South Asia. That's quite a lot to say. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Animal. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you again.
Thank you very much.
All right, then, like I said, we have another guest, two guests. So now we have Abdul Malik Badamasio. He is the Deputy Director, Bureau of Public Enterprise, BPE. He's also an astute lawyer, power negotiator, and communications expert. And he's a member of the advisory board, Skills Outside School Foundation. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you.
Thank you so much, madam.
All right, then, let's get down to business. But we'll start with you, like they say, ladies first. Now, let's talk about, first things first, let's talk about Skills Outside School Foundation. What is it about? Talk to us about this.
Yes. So I think as you rightly started in describing the foundation, we're all about three things: education, employability, and entrepreneurship. Everything in life revolves around these three E's, as far as we're concerned. All of us have to go through some kind of education, whether as kids in our homes, in the classroom, outside of the classroom, in society, and what have you. Secondly, we all have to work and or have others that work for us. So either you end up in the employment market or you are the one who's employing others. So essentially, from our perspective, these are the key pillars that enable people to be the most productive versions of themselves. And it's people who enable development, it's people who enable economies, it's people who enable growth. And so what SOS is all about is making sure that we leverage on the three pillars that you mentioned earlier: data, advocacy, and interventions, to enable every single human being across the continent, across the African continent, to be better employable, better entrepreneurial, in effect, to be able to add value to their societies. And why are these three pillars very important? Because at the end of the day, everything is about data. Everything is about data. If you don't have the data, you can't do anything.
Legacy data is life.
Data is life, exactly. So for us, at the heart of what we work, what we do is data. We first need to be able to go into the context and determine what are the problems, what are the issues that need solving. And the problems in Borno State are very different from the problems in Akwa Ibom, which are very different from the problems in Kigali. So even within cities, when you go to different households and different communities, you see different challenges. So it's extremely important that one, first of all, understands what is the context, how do the people there exist, what are the pain points that they have, and what sort of things have been done in the past, who else is acting in that environment, where are the gaps. So once we're able to dimension that, then the next thing is to be able to design the solution. What is going to solve the problems that we've seen? And of course, after you've been able to intervene, or as you're intervening, there will be issues that will come up. You'll be gathering data as you go along, right? To be able to enable you know, okay, how best can I improve what I've done? What are the things I could have done better? You know, and then once you're able to do that, you now have, again, data that you can use to make sure that what you've done can stand the test of time. Because at the end of the day, no man is an island. There's no way the work you're going to do is going to solve all the problems. You have to work with others. You have to bring other stakeholders, other actors into the process. So this is where the advocacy comes in, is that you're sending the message out there, you're informing people, and you're mobilizing the relationships and partnerships that are needed to be able to take it forward. So this is really what SOS is about. This is what we've been working on over the last 7 years. It's been very exciting. As you said, you know, we've worked with thousands of people, but for me, it's just the start. When you think about a 200 million population, it's just the scratch of the surface. If you think about hundreds of millions of people on the continent in their billions, it's really nothing. I think this is the beginning of the story for us, very much.
Yeah. Because when I hear you talk about data, advocacy, and intervention, so how well have you been able, that's like very strong pillars you talked about. So how well have you been able to maximize these three pillars in order to get your set objectives and mission statement?
Yes, I think that ultimately it's about, first of all, being very focused and clear about what it is that you want to achieve. When we set out to start Skills Outside School Foundation, I mean, I remember when the concept came up, I was just an NYC Corps member thinking about what can I do for my country. What, in the great words, what can you do for your country, not just what your country can do for you.
Okay.
I realized that there was a real gap in that space, and that I was very privileged to get the right type of education. Being able to go to the UK, having the kind of parents that I had, the sisters that I had. And so it really made sense to distill all of that and be able to create something. So I think the passion is the first thing. You have to be very clear about why you're trying to do something, and be very transparent about the objectives that you want to achieve. And I think this is what has really driven our consistency in ensuring that we implement these 3 pillars. The second thing I would say is all about partnerships. You're not going to have all the information. So even when we gather data, for instance, so let's say we pick a state that we want to intervene in. We've been working in Abuja, Kebbi, Adamawa, a number of states. So let's say we pick Abuja and we want to work in secondary schools in Abuja. Okay. The Ministry of Education has a database on the schools that exist. It may not be up to date, but it's a starting point. So that's the first step. You go and then you consult and build those relationships in the ministry and say, hey, can you give me access to this information? That helps you dimension, okay, in the different area councils, where are the schools? Is it an all-boys school? Is it a mixed school? What are the rough gender, the population? What sort of facilities do they have? You start to gather the data. You may see donor agencies, like let's say the World Bank or USAID, they may have done work before, or even a sister NGO. You leverage on their information also. So that's where the partnerships come in. When you dimension the problems, you may find that there's a problem you can't solve. So for instance, let's say you go into a community and you want to work on providing them access to proper education, but you recognize that a huge issue they have is malnourishment. Maybe the kids don't have food to eat because their parents have, they're impoverished. So you're an education-based organization, that's not your core. So you have to go and find an organization that maybe is into health, that maybe is able to provide livelihood programs for the parents, so that they are now able to have something sustainable that they can have to support themselves and their children. So this is where you now come and bring the linkages around the advocacy side. So for us, what is very critical is, as I said, dimensioning the problem and knowing what exactly do you want to achieve in this space. How do you want to make the lives of these people better? What is your role in the picture, and where are the gaps where you need to bring in other people as well to come in and do that? And then lastly, also accepting that what is very critical also is that you have to mobilize resources. And resources aren't just about you putting in your money, because I'm a real believer in putting your money where your mouth is. It's very easy for people to just go and complain about the problems, but they're not willing to commit to solve it. When you start and then you go and have a conversation with somebody and say, hey, help me get to the finish line, it's a different conversation to you coming with a blank sheet of paper and saying, put some money in my bank account. So all of these things are what we take into consideration when we think about gathering data, when we think about making the right noise to the right people and enabling them to be better. I think so often, people who do development work, they're very critical of the actors in the space, but we don't understand the limitations. When you think about government, for instance, government has a lot of priorities. Is everything perfect? No. But instead of coming into the conversation to say, you're doing the wrong thing, it's better to say, I see you've done this, but this is a gap. I've tried to fill it through a solution. I've pilot tested it. This is the outcome. These are the people I'm working with. Help me take it to the next level and scale it so everybody gets there. It's a lot more productive than bashing. So this is where the advocacy also comes in. And as I said, the intervention is critical because you need to demonstrate it. It's very difficult for you to ask somebody to help you do something when you yourself haven't proven the solution makes sense. So this is where I think for us the 3 pillars come together to really enable us to do the work that we're doing.
Oh, great. Quite a lot of things you've talked about.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about Lead for Change. Talk to us about Lead for Change. What is it all about?
Yes. So Lead for Change is in the title. It's leading for change, I, just as I said, for my story, I saw a gap. And I was just a young, 19-year-old, who was just very excited, wide-eyed, had just come back home, having spent many, many years, away from the country, and looking at how I can support. I had the benefit of working with a number of organizations like the Oxfam, like the UK Department for Education, working on youth policy. I had volunteered in elderly people's home. I had, done a lot of work with investment banks and other financial institutions. And I was very privileged to have been exposed to many things. And then also having a mom who'd been in education for 30 plus years, my dad who retired from the service. It made sense for me to do something. Now, I could have easily said, Nigeria's problems are too big for me. I'm just going to sit down and elect the president or the governor or the local government chairman that will solve the problem. But that doesn't actually do it for us. There are too many problems we have on the African continent for just one set of people to do. Yes, we have elected public officials like, the government whose responsibility is to do this, but they can't do it alone. They need public sector. They need NGOs. They need individuals like you and me to do that. If all of us were taking the time to do something that has actionable social change, Nigeria would be a much different country. Imagine if, for instance, when I think about my students through the foundation, the work we do, all of them are tasked to work on social change projects. One of them saw that she's very good at math. Okay. And there's a high fail rate for mathematics in her school. So she said to us, Bisalima, I want my social change project to be doing extra math classes for those who are struggling. One of the other ones told me he realized a lot of young people have confidence issues in his church. So he decided, as part of the work that he was doing, he asked permission from the leadership in the church for him to organize public speaking skill sessions for other young people, right? Or you find people who are doctors who decide to go and provide free healthcare services to pregnant women in their communities. These are individuals who are doing social change projects. It may be changing the life of one person, 2 people, 10 people. But if all 200 million people in Nigeria were doing that, the multiplier effect is huge. And that's what Lead for Change is about, is that don't wait for somebody to solve the problems around you. All of us have a solution to something. You may have the knowledge, the skills, the finance, the advice, a kind word, anything at all to be able to help others around you, whether you're an individual or you're a corporate. And I think it's extremely important that we highlight these two. So whether it's you and me who are sitting here coming up with the small projects I mentioned, or corporates who are more socially responsible. And when I say social responsibility, I don't mean a corporate approving 10 million naira every year to go and distribute to an orphanage. No. A very good example of a corporate being socially responsible is, for instance, the story of a company called Danone Yogurt in Bangladesh, who partnered with the Grameen Bank. And what they did is they make yogurts. That is simple. They just make yogurts. So what they notice in the local community is that young people are very malnourished. And the people there don't earn enough money to be able to buy food that has enough nutrients for the kids to grow. So what did they do? They got their team of specialists in-house to come up with a way to fortify the yogurt in a way that it has all the key nutrients a young child needs to be able to grow. They did it in a way that they can produce a single bottle of yogurt at a price that was so low that enabled all the mothers in the community to be able to afford it. How did they do that? Because they sourced the milk and all the inputs 100% from the communities.
Locally.
But what were they doing? They were giving a guaranteed market to all the farmers who before had to travel miles and miles to the city to sell their milk. And what did they also do? They said, you have to make sure where you produce the milk is clean, because we need to make sure that it's not contaminated so that it doesn't create another problem for the... So what did they do? They also solved a sanitation problem, because the community was always very dirty, but all of a sudden all the farmers really wanted their milk to be purchased, so they became much cleaner. And it created a ripple effect in the community because, one, the place was cleaner, meaning the cases of cholera outbreaks and all of those diseases that happen as a result of dirty environments
had nothing on them.
Exactly. The mothers were able to feed their kids. The kids were stronger to go out to the communities and do things. The mothers were able to also make more money, and the farmers to send their kids to school, give them the right... So they changed the whole community just by changing their business model. And I think this is what is very powerful for corporates to think about. They need to challenge themselves to do their business in a way that solves problems in society beyond just profit. And you can do it. People have been very successful doing it. So Lead for Change is an opportunity to give individuals and corporates a chance to key in, to come together, to be inspired, first of all, and secondly, get the right skills and the right type of knowledge to come up with their own social change projects, whether they want to be entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, or they just want to have small one-off projects that they want to do. The idea at the end of the day is that you are adding value to your community. You're not complaining. You're not waiting for your politicians or whoever to solve the problems, but you're taking matters into your own hands.
Okay, great. Now, I have 2 questions, but I'd like you to answer them in one breath, very quickly. Now, so I hear you talk about my students. So who are your targeted audience? And then secondly, How much has SOS been a part of driving all of this?
Yes. So the target is varied. We work with secondary school students, so that's one target, and that's through one of our programs called SOS Bridge. We also work with farmers through one of our programs, which is called SOS Head Start. And we work with other entrepreneurs as well, beyond farmers, but the core focus now is for farmers. And then thirdly, we also work with young people at the tertiary level and also at the post-tertiary level who are looking at how they can enhance their employability and entrepreneurship skills. So those are the core targets we work with now, but we continuously expand going forward into the future. How are we involved in this? This is our initiative. This is something that we've spearheaded. Okay. And we've been pushing as an organization, and we seek to launch on the 19th of January, actually, as a New Year gift to Nigeria. Oh. And we think this is an important year because this is election year. So this is critical to be able to start to do things that are very meaningful. And for the continent as well, because this is I wouldn't call it a post-COVID year, but I think we've now gotten to a point where as a continent, we now understand COVID and we've been able to find a way to be able to manage it. Yes, and we're now talking about post-recovery. So it's very important that everybody is part of that post-recovery and dealing with some of the issues as a result of also COVID.
All right, great. I'll come back to you. Now, sure. Let's talk to you.
Thank you so much.
And now, we often hear that change is a constant thing. And then the first step for any individual who wants to lead that change is the process of self-discovery. Now, so you must have discovered and agreed within yourself that you want that change, that you deserve better, or whatever it is that you're doing, you need to do better than that. And also, let's start by getting your thought on the importance of self-discovery as when you're talking about when you're walking that part of change.
Thank you very much for the very good question. But I always like to start my foundation from great leaders because as a lawyer, we are told to follow precedent. People that have come before us, their lifestyle, how do they discover themselves? How do they impact the society? How do they leave a lasting legacy that they were so immortalized in scriptures, in books, and in artistic souvenirs? I'll start from self-discoveries. You can't give what you don't have. You must first of all know yourself before you can sell yourself. I'm like an envelope embedded in a message inside. And in the art of self-discovery, you will use the word right process. I'll start from great leaders. Let me start from your comfort as a good Christian. When the Lord Jesus Christ came, he started as a carpenter. His father Joseph was teaching him, look, this is a ruler. Ruler tells you how to set your life straight. By then, he's not yet a Messiah. He's not yet a king that will change the whole world and save the world. But the passion of working with his father, working with his mom, at every point of time he tried to be the best he can be. When the time came for him to discover himself, before he can sell the message that is within him to this, is the passion, the hard work. That's why in philosophy, the journey to self-discovery is doers. Continue doing what you are doing. Along all great leaders, women, Ruth, Rahab. Let me finish from the Lord Jesus Christ. A clear example will tell you the secret of self-discovery. When he gets to the point of starting a ministry, the first thing he needed to do was where to start from and how to start from. The synagogue is there before he went and said, I have these things. I have a message. The Spirit is upon me. What am I trying to say is he gathered the people first for him to be a mirror, because in self-discovery there is nature. You want to know your nature. But you can't know your nature except you interact with nurture. What is nurture? Environment, people. He will gather them. What do people say that I am in the society? Ezekiel, Jeremiah, am I right? But when he said, okay, these are the people's people, these are the personality, like this is what they said I am. You, my very close associate, whom do you said I am? The 12 disciples, everybody got it similar like the crowd, except Lord Peter, who said, you are the Christ, the living God. And he told them, Flesh and body has not
Has
told
not
you
revealed.
this thing. It is my Father when I was revealed it. Okay, this is who I am. This is my nature. And upon these things, I'll build my ministry. I'll build my mission to sell to the world. And the hell and the rages of hell will not prevail against it. Unshakable kingdom. Jesus Christ knew himself day one. But you can't discover yourself until you interact with nurture. If you look at the 11 disciples, the way they understand him is Jeremiah, Ezekiel, John. They are right in a way because it's from the perspective they are seeing him. But he never revealed himself to the world until he got one individual who understands him. Yes, it is point for me to tell the world that this is Malik. And he changed his name from Simon to Peter. Go to the women's side, the grandmother of even the Lord Jesus Christ, David, Rahab. You know what she was doing as a female this thing. But because she has passion, as a hotelier, as a lady who served the whole world, she understands when the two cabal, when they came into the city, these are different customers, these are different clients. By their appearances, by their demon, by their nurture, he understands and quickly extracted some covenant from them. You are coming up to take up this land. You are coming up to take up, please, let me covenant with you. She discovered herself, and immediately she changed. What am I trying to say? As Jesus Christ, as a carpenter, he was giving the best he could do, working with his Father and giving it at all points. He was perfect. When it comes to discover himself, it takes one disciple. Nurture. When I mean it can be your animal, it could be your pet, it could be your classmate, it could be your wife, it could be anything nurture that will reveal your nature for you. Then you will see it. And when you look at the classical philosophy, the climate, which is still the best till today that we use in philosophical, is Celine Dion, the spirit of immortality. So this is who I am. This is all I know. I must choose to live and give the best I can give. Celine Dion, what is telling you, at every point is like an onion. Every point of call is a point of departure. You discover that you are a lawyer today, give the best in the legal industry. It might not be your destiny. It might not be your final point of call. But in the legal industry, be the best you could be as a lawyer, as a solicitor's advocate. When the onion turns again and open, another point, you discover yourself that, oh, I'm a director, I'm a bureaucrat, I'm a politician. Every point of call is a point of departure. That's why I love the word you use, process. It's like an onion, peeling every bit part of you in interaction with the nurture. You have a nature that is embedded with a message. Unique. Halima is different from Malik. Malik is different from Halima. But we have one message, different, like apple and orange. But process of self-discovery is onion. You have to peel it every point by point. 12 people that have been moving with the Lord Jesus Christ. Only one, Simon Peter, that could discover that this is the Christ, the Son of the living God. Then he said, this is the time. What am I saying? In your act of discovery, vision comes in, times comes in. It's like onion. You begin to peel off yourself. But as we resolve in the philosophical classes, the best process is continue doing. If you are a speaker, preach. If you are an advocate, whatever you are doing, give the best from it. From dear nature will reveal yourself to you. So, I'm a lawyer by training, but I'm going to be a fashion designer because that is my reality.
Ah, okay.
I'm a root by hotelier, but I'm going to be this. So that is it. But in anything you are doing, give it the best. Be passionate, integrity, truthfulness, service, purity. Nurture will now reveal your discovery to you. It's never given to anybody, this thing. Every great leader, it is nurture that reveals your true nature. But as Celine Dion said, it's like onion in her immortality song and lyrics. So this is who I am. At every point, your onion is about peeling. The past is living for the new deja vu. So this is all I know. I must choose to live as a lawyer. Tomorrow I become a politician. I must choose to be a politician. Tomorrow I become a pastor. I must choose to be a pastor. Tomorrow I become... So it's every point of call is point of good. I like the word you used. Your question, process. It's a process of giving the past for the future. Embedded.
All right, now you've said quite a lot of things. You talked about nature, you talked about nurture, you even talked about passion, but we will get right into all of that. But let's go on this quick break, and when we return, the conversation will get more intense. I will see you in a moment.
Thank you.
passion for a particular thing, because now some people would see Annabelle Oji on TV and then they tell themselves, okay, I love the way she carries herself, I love the way she do her thing, so I think I have passion for broadcasting or for TV presenting. But that might not be their real calling, like people might call it. So what is that way? What do you have to do? How do you have to find your passion? And then how do you walk through that part of nurturing your passion?
Your question is very incisive and very insightful. Seeing Oji and fantasizing I want to be Oji is not wrong. It's a very good card. It's not your mirroring, I want to be a doctor, but I ended up being a lawyer. It is okay. It is to check my academic index. It is to check that reflective. Does Oji, I love what I see, but am I?
Glad to have you back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Competence television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've missed quite a lot, but yet you can still join in the conversation as we have Alima Ibrahim. She is the chair and founder, Skills Outside School Foundation. And we also have Abdul Malik Badamasio. He is the advisory board member, Skills Outside School Foundation. Now, before we went on that break, we said we were going to touch on some of the things that you talked about. Yes. You talked about nature, you talked about nurturing, yes, and then you talked about passion. Yes. Now then, a lot of people actually tell themselves, I have passion for a particular thing, because now some people would see Annabelle Oji on TV and then they tell themselves, okay, I love the way she carries herself, I love the way she do her thing, so I think I have passion for broadcasting or for TV presenting. But that might not be their real calling, like people might call it. So what is that way? What do you have to do? How do you have to find your passion? And then how do you walk through that part of nurturing your passion?
Your question is very incisive and very insightful. Seeing Oji and fantasizing I want to be Oji is not wrong. It's a very good card. It's not your mirroring, I want to be a doctor, but I ended up being a lawyer. It is okay. It is to check my academic index. It is to check that reflective. Does Oji, I love what I see, but am I? In your self-reflection, you are using Oji as a point of departure. What I see in her, what I see in Kanu, what I see in so many stars, I love it. But it is a good checklist for you to check your academic index, to check your environment, to check what you are and what resonates your passions very well. You might start to be Oji, and at the end you still be yourself very well. As a point of departure, there's always be a key starter that kickstart your drive. As we said, the secret of all self-discovery and journey is be a doer. Not just thinking, be a doer. It is when you are interacting with nurture, people, environment, that you get back your feedback. When you move to Bioji and the first point of your call, maybe you sat for JAM, that will enable you to become a media, and at the end you score less than that. You might go on to be a sociologist. Nature has told you back that you cannot go to where you want to go. You want to reach Lagos, but your destiny is Oyo. You want to reach Sokoto, your destiny is Kaduna. By JAM, by WAEC, by admission, there are checking points that tells you what you are. But there's nothing wrong to aspire that I want to be this, I want to be that. You now make a self-reflection, academic index, checklist that inspire your desire, your input, and you begin to interact at any level, primary, secondary, university. You always need a model. You always need people that have succeeded in a discipline for you to use as I want to be this. But when you put in your best, even from JAM alone, and your cutoff point to become a medical student is 300, but you score 250. Definitely you might be going to pharmacy or might be going. That is reality check. But there's nothing wrong for me to aspire to be Halima, to be a fan. It's okay. But it gives me to inspire myself to do my best. Those are the mirror, those are the nurture. I'm telling you, nature and nurture checks very well. But there's a reality check in your family, even within yourself. The number of sleep is embedded. Nature is balanced. But desire, aspiration is always good when you put it into action. Application of knowledge, which is wisdom. And at the end, you still be the best you can be.
Okay, now the next step will be building an entrepreneurship mindset. Now, before I would go to the question of building an entrepreneurship mindset, I'd like you to first of all distinguish between an entrepreneur and a business person or a businessman, because a lot of people mistake these things. They just believe that a businessman is an entrepreneur. They just mistake these things. So I'd like you to first of all distinguish them, and secondly, taking the two questions in one breath, how can one build an entrepreneurship mindset?
Entrepreneurship mindset are the problem solvers. People who investigate nature and nurture and bring out, so they are answer before the problem, and they try to traverse. When I mean traverse, to go through the problem, the challenges, and bring the solution. It has nothing to do with business. There might be policy entrepreneurship. There might be educationist entrepreneurship. There might be social entrepreneurship. There might be academic entrepreneurship. There might be leadership entrepreneurship. A leader might be very clueless in business, but he's a very sharp decision maker, inspiring people that can make you to do certain things willfully. Entrepreneurship is a spirit of discovery, solving problem, creativity, a way where there's no way, a situation where you have a thinking cap, a thinking box, a way of seeing things from a new perspective, a way of matching insight to create a foresight, to chart a way. That is entrepreneurship spirit. Leadership of bringing a way where there's no way, solving particular problem, challenges. It could be policy, it could be business. Come when it comes to operation, it might be business, it might be, but it is a spirit, it is a way of seeing things in a very novel way, thinking in a very digging deep, well digging, by thinking, by acting, by doing, strategic thinking, strategic planning. When you think strategically, then you plan strategically, then you implement strategically, and you have partnership. That is entrepreneurship spirit. Ability to match the three circles: strategic thought, strategic planning, which is envisioning, then strategic implementation. That is entrepreneurship. It has nothing to do. It can be policy, it can be business, it can be religion. Jesus Christ was not selling and buying, but he was the greatest entrepreneur of all life. So it has to do with creating a way where there's no way, solving problem, and it involves
taking a cue from that. Now, how do we problem solve or drive towards getting the right solutions to the problem?
That is what she said in her first answer to contextualization. Some problems are global, regional, domestic, distant. For you to really solve a problem, you have to understand the context. It's called contextualize. Any right solution that stands the test of time, you have to contextualize it. He said when you go to Akwa Ibom, it's a different set of cultural consensus reality. When you go to Maiduguri, so context is what gives you the right solution to a problem. Contextual, the way. Okay, look at. I can see great leaders arguing about what is equity, equality, fairness. Both of you are ladies, now assuming they are my wife. 1 million might satisfy your need. 3 million might satisfy her need. In fairness, if it is 1 million that you need, that will be okay for you. Fairness here, I should give you 1 million naira and 3 million naira because of maybe where she's coming from or your level. So that it is what is called contextualizing the right solution. If 1 million satisfy your daily bread and 3, so that is fairness. Contextualization of problem and solution. That is what you call right solution. Thinking within the box. Why? How, who, where. When you contextualize a problem and you provide a solution that is dynamic, that is right solution. But when you want to generalize, you are creating further problem. It might not be immediate, it will be, but from all philosophical class, when we see a right solution that stands test of time, is contextualization.
Right.
The way American democracy might work, it might not work like that in Nigeria. The way Christianity will work it might not work like, so it's contextualization of problem. They are still going to the same market, to the same water pool Bible, to the same Quran. So but you have to contextualize it. The way Sunni sees Quran and the way Shia sees the Quran, the way Catholics are, so you have to contextualize a right solution to a problem. Then down to individual too.
All right.
You ask a question, if my aspiration is to be maybe a minister or a president, and I feel maybe because I'm by birth disadvantaged, but I have what it takes to lead, to offer. Then contextualizing my problem now is, how do I meet with like minds?
Okay.
How do I give? How do I give and take? If by birth I'm disadvantaged, if it is going to be democracy, government of the people, by the people, and for the people, it means number, but I don't have that number. If it's going to, then I will have to now contextualize my problem. I'm meant to lead. I'm born to lead. I'm born to save. But by birth, by disability, by one thing or the other, I am challenged.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi, I will come back to you now. I've seen you like giving affirmative signs to all that he's saying. So would you like to add something to all that he said, or maybe pick up from where he dropped off? And then how exactly can we find the missing puzzle, or the missing piece to the puzzle, implement and sustain them? Because one challenge with we human beings is sustainability, keeping close tabs. How do we find that piece to the puzzle?
No, absolutely. I completely, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Annabelle, and I completely agree with what Mr. Badamasi has said throughout. I would add, in addition to when one is contextualizing the problems, I want to press further on something he said, which is getting to the root of the problem to begin with. I think this is one of the fundamental challenges that we face. And it speaks directly to sustainability, because it's important why. What is the root cause of that problem? And it's often what I found, especially in development work, and when people want to, or entrepreneurs, when they want to tackle an issue, they don't probe why that is the case. It stands at the surface, and so what happens is that you're solving a symptom of the problem. So then once you implement the solution to that symptom, you stop. There's nothing more to do. But you come back and you see that the problem is still there, but it's rarely deterred in another way. So it's always to probe why.
Okay.
We're working with young people, for instance, in secondary school level. We've noticed that they're not doing well in certain subjects. We've noticed that when they graduate, they're not picking the right courses at tertiary level. Some of them shouldn't even end up in universities, but they're still going ahead to apply for schools. Or we see that somebody studies a course and then they get to the end of it and they don't know what to do with it. Or they go into the job market and they're just picking anything that they can get as a means of livelihood, right? Or you find that certain students are just not learning. So what then ends up happening is you have to ask yourself, you have to isolate all of those because they're all challenges. Why do these problems exist? And then you have to keep going a level beneath. But why is that happening? But why is that happening? But why? Until you get to the final point where there's no further whys. And this is how we dimension that to tackle the issue of young people not being ill-prepared for life, to tackle the issue of the unemployment challenges that we're facing, to tackle the issues of people being unemployable because they have the degrees, they have the education formally, but they cannot apply it to practical use, so an employer cannot get any value out of them. Or to address the issue of young people failing their subjects, we need to present a solution that addresses the following. Number one is their academics. How are they learning? Are they learning to cram and pass, as many of us did?
Many of us did.
Yes. Or are they learning how to apply the academic knowledge into real life? Number two, do they have the life skills, the ability to communicate? We're sitting here and talking. Some people cannot do this. The ability to work in a team, the ability to lead. Mr. Badamasi talked about leadership. The ability to even do things on time, to be proactive, to see something and say, yes, I will take this and I will get it done at this time to this quality. All of those things are life skills that nobody teaches us in the schools. But yet, when you graduate and you start a job, your boss is telling you, you have to work with Annabelle, you have to work with this person, or you have to lead this project. But I've never been prepared. I've never been trained to do these things, right? But yet you're telling me to do it. Third is, nobody advises you on your career. So all you see is, as you said, you watch Annabelle Orji presenting. But what does it mean to be a TV broadcaster or presenter? What does it mean to be a media personality? What does it even mean to be a lawyer? I've gone to so many career days where I just show up with wig and gown and everybody gets excited. You know, lawyers, you know, and then people tell me, oh, are lawyers liars? Are lawyers this? Are lawyers the people who stand in front of the judge? But they have no idea beyond what they see in movies. Somebody has to show you, somebody has to tell you in the industry that this is what it means to be a media personality, this is what it means to be a lawyer. You have to go into the workplace and see what a doctor means. That is not just about saving lives. There's a lot of sacrifices you have to go through and a lot of academic capabilities you need to get there. So we also identified that. And then lastly, we realized that it's also important that you teach young people how to take matters into their own hands. Gone are the days that, like my dad, you know, when he graduated from his, he finished his NYC, there was a job waiting for him. This was what, in the 70s. The world has changed. Sometimes you have to create the industry. You have to create the opportunities. You have to build the market out there. Somebody had to start Facebook. Somebody had to start Amazon. Before all of these big businesses started, nobody thought it could exist until somebody took the leap of faith. So we then realized, okay, to solve these fundamental unemployment, unemployability, and entrepreneurship gaps that we see, we have to deploy a program that addresses life skills, career skills, academics, and then entrepreneurship, filled with technical and vocational skills for those who, that's their career path, right? So you've now created the solution. To implement it requires you to deal with the schools, with the governments, with the parents, with the teachers, with the students themselves, and all these things will not get done in a day. It's not in, you intervene in SS1, the child is not going to get the job at the end of senior secondary 3. They have to graduate, maybe end up in university or polytechnic college of education, spend another 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years to graduate before. So it's already a 10-year journey. So if you set out to intervene in this kind of space thinking, okay, I'm just going to do it in a year and go, you're not getting it right. That means you haven't solved the issue. Because social problems in society take time. And as we keep implementing, other challenges will come up. COVID happens, this happens, that, and then you have to change course. You have to add things, you know. So for me, this is the key about implementation, is one, get the problem right, know the cause of the problem, get the solution right, get the implementation right. What exactly do you need step by step over the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20? You have to see into the future. You cannot be a myopic person if you want to be an entrepreneur. It's like what Mr. Badamasi said, you know, with the examples he gave of great leaders, Jesus Christ. If he set off sending the message just thinking it's a 1-2 year journey, it would have never happened. If he didn't think into the future, okay, what's going to happen if I conquer this place? What next? What next? What next? The greatest entrepreneurs are not thinking today. They are in 2050.
Already.
They may not even be there to do it, but they're building the institutional structure so the next CEO will take over in 2050 and get it done. They're mapping it out in a way that they're already seeing into the future. And they've created a space where people can keep innovating because they know the world changes. And what you may need in 2050 is totally different from now. So I think for me, this is the key. And then lastly, as I said in the beginning of my talk, partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. You have to work with others. If you think you're going to do it on your own, then there's a problem. And for me, the intention is clear. It's important. If you have the passion and you got it right, as Ms. Badamasi said in the beginning, if your self-discovery process as an individual is correct, it means that no matter the difficulties, you keep going. There are times when, as I've been running Skills Outside School Foundation, I didn't know how to pay salaries. There was a period when I had to go to school running the foundation, and I had to deprive myself of food. This is no joke. I'm sure even my parents are not aware of this. I hope I hope they don't hear this part. You know, but there were times where they would send me pocket money, and I just say, okay, I'll just feed off my Indomie or whatever for a few days, and I need to send this money home. This is how I knew how to use Western Union, because I needed to send money for salaries to be paid. You have to make sacrifices. If you care about the overall goal, You have to keep it going.
Okay, now you said quite a lot of things.
Yes.
I hear you talk about, instead of competition,
Collaboration.
collaboration.
Yes.
Now I hear you talk about sacrifices.
Yes.
All right, now, so in all that you said, I hear you talk about the government. Now we see that governments have traditionally played a central role in social and economic development.
Yeah.
But then they're under increasing pressure due to fiscal imperatives and slow growth. Now, so why is it important for individuals and corporate bodies to support the government at this stage?
I think that, for me, at the end of the day, there's a reason why the sectors have been named how they are. Public, private, and what people would say the third sector, which is the NGO space. You all exist in an ecosystem. It's not one person's job. It never is. So we need to move away from this culture of over-dependence on government. If you think about the greatest nations in the world, they didn't develop solely because government was intervening. They developed because private sector was growing. They developed because the development community was also doing the work. And now, when you think about it also, because of COVID, governments are overstretched. We've been sent back years and years, especially on the African continent. People can't even imagine. Governments have to make a lot of decisions about how to allocate the limited resources that they have. The world has also become so connected that the decisions of China or Russia or the US heavily impact us here.
Yes.
Sometimes people don't make those connections, but they're there. And you may think you've elected your president, but your president doesn't have full authority to make the decisions. Somebody somewhere, because he's part of an institution called the UN, he has to interact with the IMF, he has to interact with so many organizations that have a say on what policies and processes he institutes in his country. Similarly, when you look at the different levels of government also, beyond the presidency, you have others. Your state governor has certain powers. His National Assembly has certain powers. The local government chairman has certain, the parastatals. So understanding even how the country is structured and the fact that they themselves are limited in what they can do is very important. So it is our responsibility to not bash, but enable. Government can only do so much. Yes, it's their responsibility to handle certain things that we as private individuals cannot do, security, things like that. But it's important that as they're providing the enabling environment, you are plugging in to support. Besides the work we do in the foundation, you mentioned in the beginning of the conversation that my role is an essay in the Africa Finance Corporation. That's the work that we do. We have to go in and work with government to see how can we build the roads, the ports, the power plants, anything that's going to enable growth and development in this community.
All right.
There's a part for government to do. There's a part for individuals to do. And we all need to see ourselves as part and parcel of it. I just have a very small example of something I saw recently when I went on a site visit to the Lagos Blue Line light rail project that is being developed, which hopefully once it's done by the Lagos State government will completely decongest Lagos State. If you've gone to Lagos, you will know why. It's I've been in an 8-hour traffic before. It's not something you want to go through. And I went to look at the rail tracks that were placed. And there are some little copper things that are used to clip the tracks on the ground. And people were removing them. So this just highlights to you, okay, so in that example, you can say it's government's job to lay the tracks. But they've done it, and you're vandalizing it. So we all have a responsibility. Sometimes it's not even about doing. Sometimes it's about abstaining. It's your responsibility to also protect the things that are there, that government is also laying. And we have to develop a trust for ourselves. It's not perfect, but for me, what is critical is that they don't have all the answers.
Collaboration.
We need to collaborate with them at all levels to make things happen so that we have the better Nigeria, the better Africa that will make us happy. We don't have to leave the shores of our country to go and live a better life in a different place because this is home.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is home. Now let's come back to you very quickly, even as our time is fast spent. Now let's talk about human capacity development. Now Africa has so many bright minds. As such, Africa remains the hub of untapped intellectuals, as whether anyone agrees it or not. Because now when you look at the recent honors that of 2021 Nobel laureate that was given to an African, and then you talk about his predecessor, and then that's Abdulrazak Ghana, and then you talk about his predecessor, Professor Wole Soyinka, and then you talk about women that have done great things, the Ngozi Okonjo-Iwealas, the Dora Akunyiles. Then you just know that how you just ask the question that how long will Africa and its leaders continue to blame the developed nation or the developed world for the sins committed against them? Is it even possible for us to just shift away from all of these blames and then take care of ourselves? So now my question is, how do we as Africans, or how can Africans begin to solve their own problems or challenges? Very quickly.
Thank you very much. It's a very good question, but I will always be very truthful and honest with you. There is no one way to this domestication of talents, and because development and progress is a process. It's a gradual process, and more so political process. If you look at great leaders, they must have migrated, they must have been persecuted. Persecution is a way of life too. When you are talented and gifted, you might even want to give to society. You might even want to serve Nigeria. There are many talented, when you go to Nollywood, when you go to political class, most of them that came back, at a time, they're not sure the environment was not convenient for them, either for political victimization or cultural or religious. So the issue is we have to come to a consensus now that what skills outside school and foundations are doing.
Okay.
As I've never taken second position from my primary to my doctoral distance. It's a gift. But most of the time, I'm like a pilgrim. I'm like always a nomadic, moving from one thing or the other. Maybe because of your gift, you will be tolerated at time. You want to share, you want to help the society. You see the problem, but because you are seeing it, but at times interacting with nature, and that's why network, what is it, collaboration is very important. In the legal industry, I might see myself being outdated. Maybe we are the first settlers, most of the early Abuja, this thing. But behold, skills outside the school foundation is giving me a platform, not to think of relocating to America, relocating to UK, to this thing, because what you will have still done there, you can do it because there is a platform. But a situation where you have a salary, you have a gift, you have an endowment, and there's no access to market. You either be nice because of who you are or what you believe or where you come from. There's no platform. It's called access. Like even in market, you have to have access to all this, a platform to showcase your gift. No matter how entrepreneurship skills you have, no matter how if the society it doesn't allow you to showcase, at times you have to migrate.
Okay.
Look at the case of Joseph. There's nothing that will have become Medina if not because the Meccan persecuted the prophet. Christ would not have been going to Egypt. So it's not one way. Let's not think that those of us who are going to America, UK to stay. If we are domesticated, if not this example of SOS that gave me life 7 years, I have a lot of energy burning. I'll become depressive. I'll become mental because I'm generating, but I can't distribute. I can't transmit. Look at this power you are seeing now. Somebody needs to generate it. Another company needs to distribute it. Another wire needs to transmit. The same thing, brain waves.
Okay.
If you are in a society and you don't have access to give your talent as a lawyer, as a leader, as entrepreneurship, as a genius, you might go to environment. If you don't even die, you can send it to mental hibernation because what you are generating is not there. But because of SOF now, I have access to schools. All right. To December to this thing. So think about it two ways. If you want a situation where Nigeria have to bear the glory, if you look at our gift, the national anthem and the play, there can never anything greater than that in Nigeria. To uphold the honor and glory. When you go to the Bible, after the Lord's Prayer, then the power and glory be to you. That honor and glory that is embedded in our heritage, There are people with integrity. When you go to Quran, everything will perish except the honor and glory. And we already have it in our heritage. But you need to give your geniuses. You need to give your young ones. And what is the problem? It's between the old schools and the new schools.
All right, Mr.
If you don't give me room in the family, Annabelle, to show, I will leave your family and I will go back to Lagos and leave.
All right, our time is fast spent. But before we leave, in 1 second, Mrs. Halima, I'd like you to tell us what next, what remains for Lead for Change. How do we hit the ground running to get involved? Just 1 second.
This is challenging to do it in a second, but I'll do my best. So we're launching on the 19th of January.
Okay.
We will open
26.
a portal.
22.
Yes, for everybody across, the continent and all over the world, really, to be able to engage. We will start with calling for problems. We want to hear from people what are the biggest challenges that they see in society and what are the solutions they're thinking about. We'll run that for a few months, up to March, and then we'll collate it. And the top problems and solutions that have been brought together is now what we'll launch to start having conversations on. We'll run a series of masterclasses in April to give a chance for people to be able to start thinking about how to think about the solutions, how to better it, implementation, all of that, using a series of mentors, trainers, and experts from all over. After that, we will graduate the first set of people. And for those who want to continue by deepening that learning to come up with their own social entrepreneurship projects, we'll work with them through a series of trainings, programs, mentoring, advisory, and also give them access to funding so that they can implement these projects that they want to do. So I will call upon people who are change makers, who are yearning to add value wherever they are, whether you're in Philippines, you're in China, you're in the US, it doesn't matter. Engage and find a way to be able to solve problems. So we're looking for innovators. We're looking for people who have the expertise to be mentors. We're looking for people who have expertise to be trainers across different skill sets: leadership, communication, collaboration, fundraising, partnerships, networking, monitoring and evaluation. All of these skills are very critical for us. We're also looking for partners that are willing to make this happen. We're looking for corporates that want to challenge themselves to refit their business models. We're also looking for funders who are willing to support these laudable projects, and the media also to engage us, to send the message out there, to really be able to showcase some of the wonderful projects and enterprises that will come out of this entire process. So this is our hope. January is the month. Look out for everything that we're doing. Skills Outside School Foundation, we're on all of the different platforms on Instagram and the rest.
So what are the handle?
Yeah, so Skills Outside School on Instagram, LinkedIn, and also on Facebook. And then also we have a website.
You have a phone number someone can call?
Yes, we do, but well, I can't seem to remember the phone number now, but the email address is info@skillsoutsideschool.com. And we also have a website, www.skillsoutsideschool.com. So any one of it, you can happily find us, or you can check myself or Mr. Badamasi on LinkedIn, whichever.
All right,
happy to be engaged.
Great.
Thank you
It's been a great time having this discussion with you. Thank you so much for your time with us. We've been chatting with Halima Ibrahim. She is the chair and founder, Skills Outside School Foundation. And also we've been talking to Abdul Malik Badamasi, who is the advisory board member, Skills Outside School Foundation. And you've heard all that they said, so you should hit their LinkedIn, Instagram, social media handle and get started. I'll see you again next time from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.